Hello and welcome to another episode of the AI Unpacked. So, Tuesday was Google I/O Day, and every tech journalist after the keynote must have filed their takes. I have three insights that I want to share about this event, but as promised, no hype, no fluff, three stories. Let's dive into it. So, the first story is about Google. So, Google today confirmed that Gemini is no longer a chatbot. It is an operating layer for Android, Chrome, Search, Gmail, and a new category of AI first laptops called Googlebooks. It also confirmed hardware patterns for AI powered glasses and it killed ChromeOS. That last part isn't getting the coverage it deserves. Second story is again about Microsoft. The CEO of Microsoft AI went on record saying that every white collar job, accounting, legal, marketing, project management, will be fully automated by AI within 18 months. The same week, 80% of white collar workers are refusing to use AI at work. The prediction and the resistance are on the same story told from opposite ends of the same conference table. The third story is about JPMorgan. JPMorgan Chase has formally moved AI from its research and development budget to its core infrastructure budget. It has $19.8 billion of technology allocation this year. 2,000 staff dedicated to AI and model scanning over $10 trillion in daily transactions. When the world's largest bank reclassifies a technology from experiment to infrastructure, the rest of the industry follows. So, three stories, 1 week, let's go. Okay, so the first story is from Google I/O 2026, where Gemini has now become your operating system. Let's start by what actually happened at I/O, and then I will put my analysis into it. So, Google announced Gemini 4.0 as the centerpiece of this year's event, and I want to be precise about how they framed it because the framing is the story. They did not say that we have a new model. They said Gemini is now the AI layer for everything Google makes. One model family, every surface. That means Android, Chrome, Search, Gmail, and the new Googlebook laptops and hardware glasses, all running Gemini as the operating intelligence underneath them. That's not a product launch, that's a platform transformation. So, the most consequential announcement for 3 billion people who use Android devices is what Google is calling Gemini Intelligence, a system level AI agent that operates across apps autonomously without you switching apps. Here is what it means in practice. So you tell Gemini, I need to go to the airport by 6 p.m., book me a table for two somewhere near Terminal 2, and draft a message to my client saying I'll be traveling. Gemini does all three. It checks traffic, it makes a reservation, and writes the message. You didn't open a single app, you just gave an instruction. Android XR glasses are the platform's bet. So Google is betting big time on the Android XR glasses. So four hardware partners are confirmed on stage. Samsung with a product name Jinzu, Xreal under a project called Aura, and fashion partners Warby Parker and Gentle Monster. Now, Google is not competing on benchmarks anymore. It is competing on distribution. And at 3 billion devices, distribution is the moat that makes second best model irrelevant. Now, that's my take on Google. Everyone walking out of Google I/O is talking about glasses, but they're not talking about that Chrome OS is dead. Google announced Aluminium OS, a new operating system that merges Android and Chrome into one platform. If you've been using Chromebooks in your enterprise or if your IT team has standardized on Chrome based infrastructure, you're now facing a migration decision. Every Chrome extension developer is facing an architecture decision. Every enterprise contract for Google managed Chrome devices is now subject to renegotiation. This is not a minor update. Aluminium OS is a fundamental restructuring of how 1.5 billion devices work, and Google buried it in the same keynote as Glass's announcement. So Google has become a hardware platform company in a way it never was before. So this is my take on Google I/O. This is the first most important thing Google has done since it built search. Not because Gemini 4.0 is the best model, it isn't. Anthropic Mythos and OpenAI's GPT 5.5 are still ahead on benchmarks that matter for frontier capability, But Google has 3 billion Android users, 2 billion Gmail users, and the world's most used browser. Distribution at that scale makes second best model irrelevant. When Gemini is the layer that runs your phone, your laptop, your glasses, winning a benchmark race is a rounding error. What Indian enterprises should do this week if your organization runs Google Workspace? You now have a roadmap for how Gemini will touch every workflow in your organization in next 12 months. Identify 3 workflows today where Gemini's multi step task automation would eliminate manual effort. Schedule a 30-minute IT briefing on Aluminium OS before your next device refresh. And watch the Gemini API pricing at 0.25 per million input tokens for flashlight. Enterprise AI applications that were economically unviable 6 months ago are now viable. Build the business case while the pricing window is still open. So let's move on to the second story. Now, Microsoft AI chief says it's 18 months to automate white collar work. Now, I want to start with the scene. So, you are a head of a law firm, a management consultancy, a finance function, and the CEO of Microsoft AI goes on record in a Financial Times interview and says, every task you do sitting at a computer, your legal analysis, your financial modeling, and your marketing strategy, even your project management, will be fully automated by AI within the next 12 to 18 months. What do you do with that? Because here is other data point from the same week. 80% of white collar workers are quietly refusing AI adoption mandates. The prediction and the resistance are the same story told from opposite ends of the same conference table. Both are true simultaneously, both matter equally, and you cannot understand either without the other. So, in a Financial Times interview, Microsoft AI CEO Mustafa Suleyman predicted, I am quoting directly here, human level performance on most, if not all, professional tasks being achieved by AI within 12 to 18 months. He named specifically accounting, legal, marketing, and project management. He said white collar work, where you are sitting down at a computer, either being a lawyer or an accountant or a project manager or a marketing person, most of those tasks will be fully automated. He also described Microsoft's broader goal as a humanist superintelligence, ensuring AI remains under human control even as it surpasses human capability on professional tasks. He also acknowledged that Microsoft is pursuing what he called true self sufficiency in AI, developing its own frontier models to reduce dependence on OpenAI, which Microsoft holds a 27% stake in, valued at approximately $135 billion. Now, why is this prediction to be taken seriously? So here is what I don't want you to take away from the last section. The prediction is motivated. Suleiman, as the CEO of Microsoft AI, making the capital allocation argument for Microsoft $25 billion memory chip investment, that does not make it wrong. The direction is correct, even if the timeline is optimistic. AI is already demonstrating measurable capability in legal document review, financial modeling, marketing copy generation, and project management planning. The question is not whether these tasks will be automatable, they will. The question is the speed and the depth of the disruption. And here is the strategic reality. The professional who waits to find out whether 18 months is accurate before preparing will be 18 months behind the ones who prepares now, regardless. The uncertainty about the timeline is not a reason to delay, it's a reason to start. So this is my take on Microsoft 18-month story. So 18 months is a sales pitch dressed as a prediction. Suleiman is not an impartial forecaster. He is the CEO of Microsoft AI, making the case for Microsoft AI's investment thesis. We will achieve human level performance on all professional tasks in 18 months, justifies every dollar Microsoft is spending on AI infrastructure. The prediction and the capital allocation are the same argument. And the jobs that will change are not the jobs being named. Suleiman says accounting, legal, marketing, project management. He means the tasks inside those jobs, not the job titles. A lawyer who can review 1,000 contracts per hour using AI is not replaced. A lawyer who reviews 10 contracts per day without AI is competing with that person. A marketing professional who can generate and test 500 ad variants a day using AI is not replaced. A marketing professional who produces 3 pieces of copies per week without AI is a very different value proposition. So the question for every professional is not that will my job exist in 18 months? It is that am I building the skill of directing AI or am I still doing the work that AI will do? Okay, so let's move on to the third story. Third story is about JPMorgan Chase. For them, AI moves from experiment to infrastructure. JP Morgan Chase did not say we are investing in AI. They did not say we are exploring AI. They said AI is the core infrastructure and they changed the accounting category to reflect it. This is not a press release. This is a balance sheet decision made by the finance function of the world's largest bank, reviewed by auditors, disclosed to regulators, and published in an earnings report. When a regulated financial institution moves a technology from an R&D line to the infrastructure, every CFO in financial services reads that signal on the same morning. So let me give you the specifics because the numbers are extraordinary. JP Morgan's 2026 technology budget is approximately $19.8 billion. Of that, 2,000 staff are dedicated entirely to AI development. AI is projected to generate $2.5 billion in annual revenue for the bank through efficiency gains and revenue growth, and models are already scanning over $10 trillion in daily transactions for fraud patterns, credit risk signals, liquidity flows, and compliance flags. The last numbers, $10 trillion a day scanned by AI in production, not a pilot, not a proof of concept, a live operational system running on the world's largest financial data set. JP Morgan is focusing on 3 specific areas: boosting internal productivity through AI agents across legal, compliance, and operations, hardening cybersecurity defenses using AI for real time threat detection, and personalizing retail banking at a scale through AI driven recommendations for 80 million Chase customers. Now, India's major banks, SBI, HDFC, ICICI, Axis, Kotak, manage a combined balance sheet of over $2 trillion and process hundreds of millions of UPI transactions a day. That is a data asset of extraordinary value. Most of them are running AI pilots. None of them have reclassified AI as core infrastructure. Okay, so this is my take on JP Morgan. So the reclassification is the real story, not the dollar figure. $19.8 billion is a large number, but it is not the point. The point is accounting category change. When AI moves from R&D to infrastructure, it signals that technology is no longer optional. It is assumed. Every management consultant working in financial services this week referenced that earnings note in their client presentation. It is a shelling point. The industry just agreed through JP Morgan's balance sheet on what AI's status is. $10 trillion in daily transaction data is the competitive moat that nobody can replicate. JP Morgan's advantage is not the model access, that's a commodity. Its advantage is the proprietary training data, fraud patterns at transaction scale, credit risk signals across hundreds of millions of accounts, liquidity flows that represent a meaningful share of global dollar commerce. The Indian banks that understand this distinction, that data is not moat, not the model, who will build AI strategies that compound. The ones that treat AI as a software procurement decision will not. Now, India's BFSI sector has a 2 to 3 year window before this gap becomes structural. The window is not unlimited. When global counterparties assume AI enabled speed and accuracy as baseline, the institutions still running pilots are negotiating from disadvantage. The RBI framework is coming. Build the infrastructure before the framework defines the minimum, not after. The organizations that shaped cloud banking strategy in 2018 and 19 were better positioned than the ones that waited for regulatory clearing in 2021. So these were the 3 stories this week. Let's move on to the questions I've received from people this week. So the first question is, will Gemini actually replace Google search as we know it? Partially and faster than most people expect. Google AI overviews already handle over 40% of queries without a click. Gemini Intelligence takes this further by completing tasks rather than just answering questions. And the distinction that matters, you won't stop using Google, but you will stop going to the websites that Google used to send you to. That is the existential crisis for web publishers, for SEO dependent businesses, for anyone whose digital strategy is built around ranking Google search results. Now, the second question, should I believe in Suleiman's 18-month timeline? True. It is a directional signal, not a calendar appointment. The direction is correct. AI is already automating components of legal, accounting, marketing, and project management. The 18-month timeline is ambitious to the point of being implausible for full automation at scale, and the 80% workforce resistance data tells you why. Third is India's banking sector at risk from this JPMorgan move? So not from JPMorgan directly, but yes, from the structural gap. JPMorgan is not competing in India's retail banking market. The risk is that AI enabled banking becomes global standard. The gap between Indian institutions still running pilots and institutions that have reclassified AI as infrastructure compounds into structural disadvantage in correspondent banking, international transactions, and talent recruitment. The specific risks for India is the timing. The window to build the infrastructure, accumulate proprietary training data, and develop internal capability before RBI framework hardens. Fourth question is about why jobs are genuinely safe from AI automation. So, three characteristics make a role durable: physical presence in unstructured environments, plumbers, electricians, surgeons operating in complex real world conditions where AI cannot yet replicate the physical dexterity, and real time judgment is required. Novel judgment under genuine uncertainty, crisis negotiators, emergency first responders, senior advisors in genuinely novel situations where there is no training data, and human trust is the core product belief itself, like therapists, grief counselors, senior relationship managers whose clients are paying for the human relationship, not the information. Let's move on to the section of hype or real. So, five claims, five verdicts. Let's go. Gemini replacing search entirely. It's partially real because Gemini is replacing Google search. Google AI overviews handle 40% of queries without a click. That's real and growing. But Google search as a revenue engine is very much alive because Gemini's answers are now the vehicle for ads rather than the replacement for them. 18 months to automate all white collar work. Now that's a hype. I would say hype because he's the CEO of Microsoft AI and making a capital allocation argument. Fortune's own reporting says that evidence shows that AI is kind of a bust in professional services 3 months after his original prediction. The direction is correct, 18 months is not. JP Morgan AI reclassification signal. Yes, that's real. Historic infrastructure signal. JP Morgan's AI reclassification matters. It's not a press release. It is an accounting category change in a regulated financial institution's earnings report. JP Morgan has 2,000 AI staff, approximately $20 billion technology budget, and AI scanning $10 trillion in daily transactions. XR glasses becoming mainstream in 2026. I would say emerging, right product, wrong timing, AI glasses mainstream in 2026. Hardware is confirmed, partners announced on stage, Google integration genuine, but mainstream in 2026 is unlikely. AI is now competing. All right, so this week's story in 3 sentences. Google I/O confirmed that Gemini is no longer a chatbot. It is an operating layer for Android, Chrome, search, and a new category of AI-first laptops, which means distribution wins over benchmark scores every time. Microsoft AI chief gave every white-collar professional an 18-month clock. Treat it as a directional signal, not a deadline. And JP Morgan Chase moved AI from R&D budget to infrastructure budget. And that accounting decision is clearest signal that era of AI experimentation in enterprise is over. Now, if this episode was useful, share it with a person making AI decisions and is not getting this level of briefing. subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I'll see you next Thursday. Stay curious, stay sharp, and stay ahead. My name is Raj, and you were watching the AI Unpacked. Namaskar.